They said Bruno was dangerous. They said Pip was too small to survive. But one night, they both disappeared into the storm. And what happened next changed an entire town forever. This is not just a story about a dog and a little bird. This is a story about loyalty, fear, and the kind of courage that can be born from pain. This is the story of Bruno and Pip. Bruno was a large black dog, almost 4 years old. Strong body, sharp eyes, and scars on his face. People in the town of Greyhill called him a monster, not because he attacked anyone, but because he never let anyone get close. He lived behind the old abandoned warehouse near the railway tracks, a cold place filled with dust, broken wood, and silence. Every night, Bruno sat outside, watching the town lights from far away. He wasn't waiting for food. He wasn't waiting for a friend. He was waiting for something else. Maybe he was waiting for a reason to live. Because Bruno had been betrayed once, and betrayal changes a soul. But then there was Pip. Pip was a tiny yellow bird, small enough to fit inside a human hand. He had one injured wing and couldn't fly properly. One evening, when the sky was turning orange, Pip fell from a tree near the warehouse. He hit the ground hard, and no one came to help him. The other birds flew away. The world moved on. But Bruno heard the sound. A soft, weak, painful sound. Bruno walked closer slowly. His paws made no noise. He looked down, and there was Pip, shaking. Pip looked up at Bruno. His eyes were filled with fear. Because everyone knows, when a big dog stands over a small bird, it usually means one thing: the end. But Bruno didn't attack. Instead, Bruno sat down, and Pip, barely breathing, moved closer to his warm fur, like he trusted him, like he felt something the world couldn't see. And that night, for the first time in years, Bruno wasn't alone. Days passed. Bruno started sharing his food, small pieces of bread, little drops of water. And Pip started healing. Even though he couldn't fly, he could still hop around. And every morning, Pip would sit on Bruno's head like a crown. The town people noticed. They would walk past the warehouse and whisper, "Look, that monster has a bird." Some laughed, some were confused, some were scared, because Greyhill had a story about Bruno. They said he used to belong to a cruel man, a man who trained him to fight, a man who chained him in darkness, and when Bruno refused to fight anymore, that man left him to die. Since that day, Bruno hated humans. He trusted nobody, until Pip. But then, the real problem began. Winter came. The wind became sharp like knives. The nights became longer, and the streets became silent. One night, Pip's breathing became weak again. The cold was killing him. Bruno panicked. He carried Pip in his mouth carefully, like a father carrying his child. He ran through the empty streets searching for warmth. But every door was closed. Every light was turned off. No one wanted to help the dangerous dog. Bruno stood in the middle of the road, snow falling on his back, Pip shaking in his fur. And Bruno looked up at the sky like he was asking God a question. Why does the world punish the innocent? But what happened next was unbelievable. A small girl opened her door. Her name was Ella, only 12 years old. She had seen Bruno many times from her window. She was the only one who didn't believe the rumors. When she saw Bruno standing in the snow, holding a tiny bird, her heart broke. She whispered, "Come, Quickly, Bruno froze. His eyes narrowed. Humans had hurt him before, but Pip made a weak sound, and Bruno stepped inside. The warm air hit his body like a miracle. Ella wrapped Pip in a soft cloth. She placed him near a heater. Pip's eyes slowly opened. He was alive. But then, Ella's father came home, a tall man, hard face, cold eyes. The moment he saw Bruno, he screamed, "Get out!" He grabbed a metal rod. Ella cried, "Dad, please, he saved the bird." But her father didn't listen, because her father was the same man who once owned Bruno. No one saw this coming. Bruno recognized him immediately. The smell, the voice, the anger. Bruno's whole body started shaking. Not from fear, but from memories, painful memories. Chains, beatings, darkness, and Ella's father raised the rod again. Bruno could have attacked. He could have ended it. But Bruno didn't move. He just stood there, protecting Pip. And that's when everything changed. Ella stepped in front of Bruno, a 12-year-old girl standing against a grown man. She shouted, "Stop! If you hit him, you hit me first!" The room went silent. The father's hand trembled. Ella's eyes were full of tears. She said softly, "He's not a monster. You are." That line hit harder than any punch. Her father froze, because deep inside, he knew she was right. Bruno slowly walked forward, not to attack, but to leave. But then Pip hopped off the cloth, his wings still injured. He walked straight toward Bruno, and with all the strength he had, he climbed onto Bruno's paw, like he was saying, "I'm with you." That moment broke something inside the father. Because he saw it, he saw the truth. A creature he called a beast was showing more love than he ever did. The father dropped the rod. It hit the floor with a loud sound. He fell to his knees, and for the first time, he whispered, "I ruined you." But the real climax was still coming, because outside, people had gathered. They heard shouting. They saw Bruno enter the house, and now they were screaming, "Kill that dog! He's dangerous!" Someone even called the animal control truck. Bruno heard the sirens. His ears went up. His eyes widened. The same world that abandoned him was coming again to destroy him. Ella ran outside and shouted, "Stop! He saved Pip! He saved him!" But the crowd didn't listen. They were blind. Fear makes people blind. And then, the animal control officer stepped forward with a gun. He aimed at Bruno. Ella screamed. Pip started chirping loudly. Bruno stood still, not running, not fighting, just standing, ready to die. And that's when the most unbelievable thing happened. Ella's father walked outside. He stood between Bruno and the gun. The crowd gasped. He shouted, "Enough!" His voice was like thunder. He looked at the officer and said, "That dog is not dangerous." He turned to the crowd, and with shame in his eyes he said, "I was the one who made him suffer. I was the monster." The whole town went quiet. Snow kept falling, and Bruno's eyes filled with tears, because he never expected a human to finally take responsibility. The officer lowered his weapon. The crowd slowly stepped back, and for the first time, Bruno wasn't being hunted. He was being understood. Ella walked to Bruno and hugged him tightly. Bruno didn't move. He didn't growl. He just closed his eyes and accepted love. Pip flew a few inches for the first time. Not fully, but enough to land on Bruno's shoulder. And that was the moment Bruno realized something. Not every human is cruel. Not every heart is evil. And not every wound is permanent. Some wounds heal when someone finally chooses kindness. That night, Bruno didn't go back to the warehouse. He stayed with Ella and Pip. And every morning, the town saw something they never thought possible. A monster, walking proudly through the streets, with a little bird on his shoulder, and a little girl holding his leash. And the town finally understood. Bruno was never dangerous. Bruno was just broken, and broken things don't need punishment. They need love. Sometimes the world will label you as something you're not. They will call you weak. They will call you useless. They will call you a failure. But remember this: you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Bruno chose love over revenge. Pip chose hope over fear. And Ella chose courage over silence. So if you're struggling today, if you feel alone, if you feel like the world doesn't understand you, then listen carefully. Your story is not over. Because one moment, one decision, one person can change everything. If this story touched your heart, then like this video, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think Bruno forgave the world? Or did he just find peace? See you in the next story.